All right, good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Mack, and I'd like to welcome you to our first grade curriculum webinar. A reminder that this is the first grade team's first time doing a webinar, so we do ask for your patience and grace as we do our inaugural webinar for all of you. I do want to give you a little background on why we're doing a webinar, and that is we know that we have a fair number of parents who don't have the flexibility or luxury to necessarily come on site for an in-person parent meeting. So we are trying different ways to meet our parents where they are. So welcome to all of you who have been able to join us today. If you know of some parents who are not able to join us, we are recording this webinar, and once our technology team has done their magic, once the recording is completed and has sent me the actual link to the recorded version, I will upload it to the elementary school parent page on the school's website, so that you can go back and watch this and listen to it as many times as you want to. So there are several options with the webinar, and just a second, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Masola, who is also in the room with us, just to help us with the technology piece, and she's also going to talk about a few things with technology with first grade. But we are going to hold all questions till the end of the webinar, and then I will actually moderate any questions that you would like to submit via the chat option, and that's Ms. Masola is going to walk you through where it will be on the device that you are using. So please hold your questions till the end. If you'd like to type them in as you're thinking of them, that is fine, but I won't start reading them and actually giving them to the first grade team until they finish their presentation. So before we get started, I would like to let you know that Mrs. Batty, Mrs. Tereshinsky, and Mrs. Rice are with us this morning. And Mr. Nama also has joined us from our spelling bee, which was going on for a very long time this morning. We obviously prepare our students exceptionally well in that area. So Ms. Masola, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to quickly go over how you are able to add a question into your chat box. If you're using the iPad, you're going to tap on the screen. A toolbar should come up right on the side, if you see it right here. And then you're just going to click on the chat icon, and then your chat box will come up. When you type a question, you're going to be typing it to everybody in the group. Dr. Mack is going to be monitoring the questions, and we'll get to them at the end. If you're using a desktop, it's kind of the same thing. Once you move your mouse, you're going to have your toolbar located on the bottom. Look for the chat icon right there, and you're able to type in your question or message or comment there. All right, back to you, Dr. Mack.
All right, so we are actually going to dive right into our presentation for you this morning. So I'm going to turn it over to the first grade team.
Hello, this is Keller Batty, and I'm just going to talk first about what we're going to be covering. We're kind of going to just talk about the different changes that happen come second semester as we prepare our students to become second graders. We'll talk about the changes in curriculum and what to kind of expect, and then also just some things to look forward to and some upcoming events. And the first thing we'll kind of jump straight into is our phonics and spelling. This week, I think has really made a huge impact on the students with attacking two-syllable words. And that has really helped, I think, the whole reading in general. But as the semester continues, we will continue to teach the following concepts, and these will just further help students as they're reading books, but also in their writing as well. Some of them follow very straightforward rules through Orton-Gillingham, and some of them are more tricky. We try to provide visual cues for the ones that are a little bit more tricky. For instance, next week is our EA vowel team, and there's not really a rule for that one, and so we provide like B as in, or EE as in bee, or EA as in ice cream. And that helps children kind of remember the spelling rules better. And in addition to all of our spelling rules that you see, we also are studying syllable divisions. I'm sure you've noticed that. That's come home in the red folder. And we teach syllable division because it helps them break apart words and really we remind students that they can actually spell really long words if they're broken up into easier parts, into syllables. So far, we have covered the first 3 syllables, closed, open, and magic-y. And as the semester progresses, we will be covering the next 4. Vowel teams is obviously next. And again, this is something that just further helps your child attack words that they don't know, but also gives them confidence in knowing that they can attack really long words. And then finally, in regards to phonics and really spelling, we will be doing, I think in about 2 weeks, our mid-year brain boost assessment. And this is just more so assessment for us as teachers to kind of see where your student is and where their strengths and weaknesses are as readers. And then in addition to that, it gives us good targeted feedback of where we can kind of meet them and where, so we can set them up for success to become better readers. And the last part of our kind of foundational assessment that we do in the mid-year and also at the end of the year, we didn't do this first semester, is our DIBELS test. And DIBELS focuses solely on fluency. Mrs. Tarashinsky is going to talk more about how we're going to be covering fluency, but this is more so we can make sure students aren't reading like a robot and starting to read with more better pace, expression, and punctuation.
Good morning, this is Maggie Tarashinsky, and I'm going to talk a little bit about fluency. As we move into the second semester, we are really trying to kind of focus on becoming more fluent readers. With that, we're looking at students for them to pay attention to punctuation, expression, and their pace. We will be starting a fluency boot camp, and we call it kind of a boot camp because it's very intense. Yes, we throw them into some things, and there's a lot of things that we're doing in class where they're going to have fluency folders, and we're kind of working on it each morning and throughout the day, kind of calling students up to our desk to read words. We start with words, and then we move to phrases, then go into sentences, and eventually paragraphs within a story. With that, we'll be kind of timing them just more for kind of see their pace with the timer. You'll notice that next week we'll be kind of starting with some words, and we'll send home a word list, and we want them to kind of practice this. This is an example of one of the word lists that will be going home. This current one that's on the slide is going to be a mixture of all the past concepts that we've had so far this year. And as we move forward, we'll keep adding on new words with new concepts to the list. But our goal is for students to be able to read this list at the beginning, which we would consider a cold read, so it's the first time they read it. And then as they continue to practice it through the week, we consider it like a hot read, so they've read it before. And our goal is for students to get better and increase or decrease their time reading through these words and through the list. In addition to fluency, we're going to continue with our journeys. We're going to be moving to lesson 16 to 30. And with that, we have still a combination of fiction reads plus nonfiction text. And we're going to be continuing to add on to our reading strategies. We'll be introducing some more higher level thinking reading strategies, which we want the students to be able to apply to their own reading and kind of tackle texts that are a little bit more challenging for them. Beginning of the year, we are kind of looking to for students to learn how to read, and now we're kind of reading to learn. So you'll still see the weekly book baggies that they will be taking home, and you'll see a combination of past reading concepts as well as new reading strategies that they'll be learning this year.
Hi, this is Katie Grice, and I'm going to talk a little bit about writing and what that looks like in the second semester as well. We are continuing with the journal entries each week that your child will be writing. In regards to the journal, our expectations increase second semester in that where in first semester we were looking for them to give us, 3 to 5 sentences. What we're really looking for in the second semester is that they're increasing the amount that they are writing for us, and we're really looking for a minimum of 5 sentences. We love to have details about what you've done over the weekend or over a holiday, and so we always encourage more, but what we're really looking for is 5 sentences. And when we do these journal entries, we have the students really read back over them and look for things that they could self-correct, meaning things like heart words that we've gone over that they have been exposed to. Those should be spelled correctly, as well as looking for their phrasing and sentences and making sure that they have periods where they hear their voice stop, and so then at the end of sentences. We also move into more of what we would call narrative writing. The first semester in first grade includes a lot of expository writing. We wrote a lot of stories that had to do with facts, like how-to writings, and things like that. And in the second semester, we really move more towards a narrative where the kids are writing more about personal experiences. So these are always a little more tricky for the kids because we're not able to help them. So we may not know exactly what happened on your trip to Yellowstone 2 summers ago. And so trying to pull those facts out is always a little bit of a challenge, but that's where the fun part lies for the kids because they are really working on telling the story themselves. So it's always fun to see how that turns out. It may not be exactly like you remember it, but it usually is how fun to see how the kids remember that as well. Another thing that we work on with our writing is talking about the reason that we're writing a story. In the first semester, we talked to the kids about something called PI, which is the author's purpose, and why we're writing the story to either persuade, inform, or entertain you. And so a lot in the first semester, we wrote some information pieces, and now we're moving towards that entertainment part where we're really working on writing more of a story and telling more of little tales and things like that. Some just nuts and bolts that we've hit on that they should feel pretty comfortable with as far as grammar goes, nouns, verbs, and adjectives, also commas in a series. They should feel pretty comfortable about those and being able to identify nouns, verbs, and adjectives in sentences. And working with commas in a series, we've done that and we'll continue to do that as well. All these things, of course, we'll continue to work on as we move into the rest of the year.
All right, on to math, my favorite subject. So as you guys have probably realized, the first 5 chapters of Go Math, we have beaten addition and subtraction to the end with the different strategies. And you're probably crazy reading like, what are all these strategies? The reason why we teach such a diverse amount of strategies is we want students to be able to flexibly use them, but also pick the strategy that best suits them. We're right now in chapter 5, and not after the long weekend, but the following week is when we're going to have our chapter 5 test, where it's just about addition and subtraction relationships. However, as the semester progresses, we're going to be working more with numbers and operation, and then my favorite, measurement and data. Measurement is where your child will finally learn how to tell time to the half hour, hour, and quarter hour. And that will really help us as students are always like, Mrs. Batty, what time is it? So we're hoping that they'll be able to actually read the clock. You know, and then the data part is just more statistics and graphing, and we're going to be exploring the different types of graphs. And then we go into kind of 3-dimensional and 2-dimensional geometry. And then obviously at the end, we'll kind of do a sum of everything that we've learned and kind of put one big bow on it. But in addition to the different math, there's different ways that you can help your child at home. During the back to school night, I think, or different times, your child was given a login. We actually really haven't used this login yet in class. We're kind of waiting for this opportunity to discuss it with you all. And every child's login is pretty similar. Everyone's username is their first initial and then their last name, and then every first grade's password is just Warriors, all lowercase. And so you go on to Think Central, and this is what you'll see when you log into the page. And you will do your country and your state, district, private school, and then you'll find St. Martin's on the scroll. And then your username and password is where you'll plug in your child's information. So you're probably wondering, why will this be helpful for us? Well, as the content increases, maybe you'll need more support at home or more reason to say, well, why do you do this strategy? Or what does this mean? This is a great online resource. So once you log in and you're at home and you get this access, on the far left is where it says the things to do in my library and my scores. Things to do will be if we assign something. As of now, we don't really like to assign things online, although it is an option for us. I think we're still a big fan of just actually the piece of paper. But the My Library is where you can go and get extra support if needed. When you press on My Library, you'll see on the far left of your or right of your screen the different components that you have choices of, and I'll kind of go through each of those in a second. But we really love this at-home access, especially if you're absent or have questions or need more remediation or support. This is one really good avenue that will help you in supporting your child. So going kind of more in depth about what are the different online components.
Can I stop you for a second? Can you go back to the other screen?
Sure.
Okay. One of the things that I want to share with first grade parents, because you may not have had this experience yet, the home access is just one of the reasons why we went with Go Math. We felt like the robust online presence would be helpful for parents. But the more familiar you become with the home access, the easier it's going to be for you and your child as they progress through elementary school and even middle school, because this is going to continue to be a large part of the support you have. And as they get older, I know that Mrs. Larson will actually, who's our 5th grade math teacher, will actually utilize the online access more for student work. So the more comfortable you get with that, I think the easier the transition is going to be as you get older. Thank you, Keller.
Yeah. So like Dr. Mack said, we will start kind of showing this to your first graders. Obviously, as they progress throughout elementary school, they'll become more comfortable with using this online component. But, computers are still a little bit foreign to some first graders. So the different online components that we really like and that will, again, further help you at home is the Go Math animated models. These are just little videos that they have Curious George kind of help explain different things. The iTools is actually a huge thing, as I'm sure you've noticed with homework. It's like using counters or manipulatives, do this, and you're probably like, well, I don't have these counters and manipulatives at home. This is one option that allows you to do it online. And it gives you your different counters and manipulatives and counting bears and whatnot. Another thing is our personal math trainer. And we call it really adaptive because depending upon how your student responds to different questions, if they get it correct or not, then it'll change the alter of their different questions. So if they need more remediation with doubles facts, then it'll ask more doubles facts first. Or if they are, masters at doubles facts, then it'll extend their learning and further their mathematical thinking. And this, again, is different for every student. So this is really the best place for your child to really practice their math skills. And then the Go Math Student Edition, this is just, again, if you're absent, you can have an online copy of what your student would have in his or her desk, where you can find the homeworks, you can find the different lessons, the sheets that we would do probably within the classroom, and you could even print them out, or you could complete them online. If you do complete them online, we ask that you send us an email. Sometimes we don't always check it, and we won't know that, oh, hey, little Timmy completed his assignment online when he was out for 5 or 6 days. Let's hope not, it's not that long. Another one is the Interactive Student Edition. This is where they actually will teach you the lesson and go over the essential question, the concept, the vocabulary, and kind of teach you the lesson that maybe we would be doing in class. And it's more interactive and hands-on rather in comparison to the Go Math Student Edition, which is their workbook. And then the other one that we really like is the Mega Math, and where they just have a handful of supplemental games. From addition to subtraction to measurement to data, and they're just fun different games. Again, as of now, your first grader has not seen any of this. We wanted to kind of show parents first so you can kind of further support them when they come talking about this. But they will start to see this as the semester progresses. And then the last part of math, and you've probably already noticed this, is when we send home homework, there's always QR codes. And the QR codes are always for the problems that are really a little bit harder, the critical thinking problems or the multi-step problems. And if you can download just a QR scanner on your phone or iPad and scan the code, and this will actually, a video will pop up, and this is the Math on the Spot video. We play these within our classroom, so they probably are very familiar with the little different puppets and Professor Burger that pops up. But they do a good job in explaining how to attack this problem. It's not the exact problem, but it's similar to the problem, so then your student is given the tools of how to attack it and successfully solve it. This is also to help you all in supporting your child when they're solving this. As the second semester, we're looking for homework to be more independent. And if your child is really struggling, please just let us know, and we can figure out different ways to support your child. As I know, these math sheets are kind of verbose and heavy in language. But because like Dr. Mack said, we chose the Go Math curriculum because there is so much support at home, and we feel like the extra support is really needed for some students. And the last part of the math that I'm going to just talk about is fast facts. I think we all kind of spoke about fast facts in our, not conference reports, but our report cards. But we have really been drilling in addition and how many problems we can solve within a minute, thinking about our different strategies that we have covered and reviewed. And now we're going to be moving into subtraction and isolation, and then we'll kind of be combining both of them, and your child will have to solve addition and subtraction problems to see how many they can solve within a minute. We do this more so to get them prepared for second grade, but also to practice. We always say, practice, practice, practice. Just like we have to practice at reading, we also have to practice at math fact fluency. Because the easier those fast facts are, the easier other things will be down the line. And then just something to look forward to is our summer math packet. Just like in, I guess, kindergarten, they had a summer math packet for first grade. They'll also have a summer math packet for second grade, where they'll just be brushing up on their past skills that they learned to get ready for the next grade level. And that.
And moving on to social expectations, as we move into our second semester, kind of our expectations shift, and we're trying to prepare them for second grade. And with that, we are kind of expecting more organization, better time management, and just overall accountability for their work. We're kind of looking for students to be finishing their work on time. Our work pace is kind of increased as we prepare them for second grade. So it's really important that students are finishing their work on time and turning in all of their assignments. You will kind of see if your child is not completing their work in a timely manner, you might see some of that work coming home. And we will also be in communication with you about that. But just be kind of on the lookout for that. We really want students to try to use their time wisely and manage their time. And also taking pride in their work. We are looking for good handwriting. We will start doing things where, students will be redoing work if it is messy and if it is not up to the quality that we feel that they can do. And so we're kind of, again, preparing them for that for second grade, because those are expectations in second grade as well. We're also continuing to work on building student stamina. So what that kind of means is, for example, morning work, we might have a little bit more to do in the morning for morning work. Or maybe it's our journey stories. Our stories have become longer and a little bit more complex. So they're reading, building that stamina for reading. Same thing with their writing, as Mrs. Grice mentioned, we're expecting longer stories and more details. So we kind of really want students to, be aware of that, and we're kind of working to set them up for success as they move on to second grade.
We talked a little bit about tests and how at the beginning of second semester, one big thing that the students got really excited about last week and this week was the fact that they start reading their tests on their own. So those journeys comprehension tests that we read the question and the answers to them at the beginning of the year, they are now responsible for reading those themselves, which in my class at least, it was a huge hit last week. They were all like, yes. So we also, while we are encouraging them to read the tests themselves, we're modeling for them good test-taking procedures, meaning we want them to read the question and all of the answers before picking the one that they think is the best. We encourage them to read slowly and to not rush through it. And that's kind of a tricky thing for some folks. They want to be the first one done, and we like to remind them that it's not the first one done. It's the fact that you're doing your personal best. And with that good test taking, we go back and encourage them if they do not recognize a word, or if they are confused as to what the question is asking, that a good thing to do in that situation is to raise your hand and ask a question. We are, still in school, and so wanting to make sure that we understand the questions that are being asked. So that's always a great idea, is to raise that hand and ask a question if they're not sure of a word or what the meaning is. And then another thing that we do is we want to make sure that they remember that the best part of test taking is going back over and making sure that you have answered every question. And not skipping any questions. And so just going back and making sure that all of the questions have answers with them. I think that's about it.
Tests are exciting.
Tests are fun. Not really. Computer, it's all you, Miss Sola.
All right, guys, this is Miss Sola, and I'm excited to say that the second semester, my first graders come down to the computer lab with me. Yay! If you heard anything about the Clever badges, what that is a QR code that each of our students get to log in to the Clever desktop, which allows them to go on different websites. Now that's just for the computer lab, and it helps me out well getting them on websites with long URL addresses. Things we do in the computer lab, we start off with computer basics for my first graders, then we go into keyboarding, and I make that extremely fun. We have a lot of unplugged keyboarding activities where they get to put a keyboard, the keys together. And then one of my favorite parts is computational thinking, big word for coding. Yes, my first graders code down in the computer lab using two software called the Foos and Codable, where they get an item to the other side of a puzzle, which sounds easy, but it's very hard. They start using algorithms and learning about programs and even loops and everything. And then last but not least, we go into digital citizenship, which I feel has to start when they're young, knowing how to maneuver through the computers, know how to be safe online. And I also talk to them about balancing, kind of zoning out and not being on the computer all the time, or when they get older, using their cell phones. So that's what we do down in the computer lab.
The kids love the computer lab.
Especially coding.
So kind of going straight into projects, you can probably realize, or we sent home at the beginning of the month, our first book report, and that's the biography in a bag. There's an example right there on the right of your screen, where we sent home just a bag, whether it was white or brown, and then a stencil of it looked like the gingerbread man, but of a person, and then your child is supposed to decorate it, and then inside the bag, put 3 items that represent their person, and then a note card in the bag where they'll be doing a little presentation. Parents, we really look to you all to, we talk about what it means to present in front of the students, but we look to you to practice it. It takes a lot to get up in front and present in front of your peers, and we always say practice, practice, practice. And that's something, we're just, again, getting them ready, because second grade, they jump straight into book reports, and their expectations obviously are a little bit different from ours. So our first book report, in addition to our monthly reading, is due on January 31st. If you're having trouble finding a biography, the library has a whole shelf that are probably on level for your first graders, so you do not have to go out and buy a book. Mrs. Crosby and Mrs. Stewart do a good job in pulling for our monthly reading to help further support. Your child can bring home that book when they go to the library. February, we'll also be doing a poster book report. March, there actually won't be one just because March is such a crazy time, but there will be a reading log. And then April and May, we kind of combine them because this is kind of a longer project where they'll actually be doing a video commercial for your book. We'll send examples exactly of what that means, but you can use your phone, your iPad, whatever is easier for you, where they just kind of try to sell us on their book and persuade us why that their book is the best or why they did not like their book. And that kind of is just for our monthly reading. And as always, please know that we, appreciate your feedback. If you think this is too difficult or if you're having trouble finding books, please just let us know.
Another project that the students really look forward to is our state postcard project. This is a lot of fun, and we try to collect postcards from every state. We try to give you a heads up about that because I know a lot of people travel during spring break, so you might want to collect a postcard. But if you know family members or friends that live in another state, each classroom tries to get all 50 states, and we kind of put them up at the back of our room on a map, and it helps kids identify different states, and it's just fun for them to collect. With that, we also will be assigning each student a state to research and do a small little report on. Again, this is something that I feel like the students really get into and they enjoy learning about a specific state. We will be sending obviously more information about this and give you examples of what this will look like and the things that they need to research. So just be thinking as you travel, begin collecting and sending postcards. You can just kind of put your child's name on it and the teacher's name, and then just send it directly to the school, and we will get those.
And then we love to end the year with a bang by giving your child the opportunity to teach us and the class something that they might be interested in. It's called Time to Teach, and it's usually the last 2 or 3 days of school as we are winding our way down and moving into summer. So, of course, more information will go home about that as well as we get closer to it, but really it's just an opportunity for the kids to come in and, if they have an interest in playing the violin, then they could bring their violin in and show it to the class and talk about everything that has to do with it and, give a little presentation. We usually give them about 10 minutes for this. And one thing that we do ask, if you're coming in, we'd love to know that. Sometimes our day gets really tightly scheduled, and then also it gets away from us sometimes as well. So if we know that you're coming, then we do a much better job of making sure that we stay right on schedule. So it's really a fun time, and the kids get to do a lesson plan and tell us what kind of supplies they might need and things like that. So it's definitely something that they look forward to, and we do as well, because we get to learn a little bit something extra about your child that we may not have known before.
The 100th day.
Can't believe it. It's already here.
I know. It's crazy. So on January 29th, that Monday, we will be celebrating our 100th day of school. More information, this document will actually go home with you next week. But the 100th day is where your child can dress like they are 100 years old. We kind of take a break from our normal schedule and do different things to celebrate being 100 days smarter. And it's really just a fun time. We really ask that no gray hairspray. If you want to try to turn your child's hair white, baby powder is a great alternative. So they dress up like they're 100 days. We celebrate. We do a lot of fun little things. They also are asked to bring in 100 small items that can fit into a Ziploc bag. This can range from being a Cheerio to 100 Legos to 100 paper clips. This is going to be helping us as we build our base 10 knowledge. So it kind of also ties into our math curriculum as well, as we will be adding double digits and things like that. So we call that our 100-day museum. But it's a really fun day, so we encourage you guys to get involved. We've had everything from canes to, actually we've never had a wheelchair, but we had walkers. Please no wheelchairs.
No wheelchairs. No wheelchairs.
I wasn't wanting a wheelchair.
No.
But it's just a really fun day. So it's something that your child will be really excited for, because they've worked so hard these past 100 days and just have grown so much since the beginning of the semester. And this is just one way that we celebrate it.
Next fun thing is field trips. We still have 3 field trips left for the end of the year. Our first one coming up in February was actually a rescheduled one from earlier in the year, and this is our Music Oregon field trip. The students in music class have been learning about the organ, so we go and see this really beautiful organ, and it's fun for the kids to actually see it in action. And then 2 other ones we have kind of go off of our science and journeys nonfiction story curriculum. So the first one is, they're both in April, and we go to Piedmont Park to see Buzz on Bees. This goes nicely with our science class, so the kids get to kind of, again, experience it outside of the classroom, which is a lot of fun. And then our last one is to Tellus Museum, and we're going to see galactic weather. We have read a lot of nonfiction stories in our journeys having to do with weather, and so it's kind of fun for the kids, again, to see this and get to learn a little bit more outside of the classroom.
And then upcoming in just a few weeks is our second Parent-Teacher Conference. That date is Friday, February 9th. Be on the lookout for the Sign Up Genius. That link will go live by 4 o'clock on Thursday, January 18th. And that just will be an opportunity, of course, for us to sit down for a second time and chat about your wonderful children and how they're doing and how we will be ending our year. As you read those conference reports before coming to the conference, make sure that if you have any questions that might pop up from reading it that you that you want to make sure that we specifically spend some time talking about, please email us those questions beforehand. So, but since we only have 10 minutes together, it's nice for us sometimes if there's something that you specifically want to talk about beforehand, that we have that in our brains before your conference starts, so we make sure that we can guide it in the direction that that you would like to go.
All right, so first grade team, that was absolutely wonderful. So we are moving now to our questions portion, and I do have one question already in the chat, and a reminder that if you would like to ask a question of the first grade team or me or Ms. Masola or Mr. Nama, please put it into the chat screen and I will fill those questions and send them on to the first grade team. So here's the first question. For commas in a sentence, do you teach that there should be a comma before the conjunction in a series or not? For example, red, comma, white, comma, and blue. Or do you do red, comma, white, and blue?
So we do it before the conjunction.
Before the conjunction, we do teach that at before the word and.
Yes.
And just to add a little bit more to that, I know in fourth grade, in the grammar portion of what they do, they really delve more into the different ways that you could use commas and when it's appropriate to use it this way and when it's appropriate to use it that way.
Like most of the time when they're writing, we're kind of thinking more of the, pencil, paper, and paperclip.
Yeah, so back to like commas in a series, we do the lists. We go from list to then putting it into a sentence. And really the only conjunctions we kind of teach are and or. We don't do like but or nor yet.
Yeah.
Right. But good question.
That is a good question. So any other questions that any parents who are with us have? We are happy to answer those. So we'll give you a few minutes to think, and if you'd like to put one in the chat screen, that'd be awesome.
And if you come to think of other questions, please feel free to email us. We're a big fan of questions. I'd rather answer all questions than have anyone not know what's going on. So we're all on the same page. I feel like I'm on Jeopardy. You know what I mean? Okay.
All right, so we don't have any additional questions from the webinar, but as Ms. Batty just said, if you think of a question or you think back on something that was shared in the webinar that you're like, what did they mean by that? Please reach out. Oh, here we go.
Good.
Did something come out of the schedule to allow for computer class? Good question.
Oh, good question.
Yes, so we had guidance first semester with Mrs. Barton, and then we no longer have guidance, and computer came in to take our guidance slot.
And that was from the beginning of the year. I guess we knew that we were going to have split our year 6 months and 6 months, or half and half, with guidance and computer. So it is the same time as the guidance would be in our schedules, just going to the second semester.
And rest assured, if your child has an issue or something, Ms. Barton is still around and to answer all questions or help support your child socially if they need it. We just don't have a daily or a weekly time slot where we meet with her.
All right. Good. So two great questions. And so we are going to wrap up the webinar at this point. Love feedback about this format. We truly are trying some different things to make sure that we do meet our parents where you are, because we know that your days are exceptionally busy and it's not always easy for you to come in and actually physically be on campus, but we want you to have this great information about the education that you have chosen for your child. So feel free, if you have follow-up to the webinar, one, we would love to know your thoughts on this format, and if you felt like it was worth your time and you gathered enough information to really understand second semester for your child. Also, if there are any follow-up questions to the webinar for the first grade team, me, Ms. Masola, or Mr. Nama, we would be happy to answer those. And we truly, truly appreciate you guys joining us today. Once again, this is recorded, and at some point, hopefully this afternoon and Tuesday at the latest, just to give our tech team a little time to do this, I will upload it to the elementary school parent portal page. I will send an announcement out once it's been uploaded so that you know that you can go and watch it again if you would like, or share with others that you know weren't able to join us today. So thank all of you for being here, and thank you to the first grade team, Ms. Masola and Mr. Nama. You guys have a great Friday, great long weekend, and we'll see you on Tuesday.
Bye.
Thank you.